Hey guys, check out what I could do! This is when Law wants to go stealth mode. No one will be able to tell who I am now. I could seep into Wano with no problems whatsoever. Plus, I got a little peephole. Hi, how you doing? Okay, I just wanted to start off the chapter a little bit more lighthearted this time because, what happened last week? I seem to recall there being something big. Oh my god, Luffy's dead! Oh no, okay, no, he's not dead yet. Yeah, but he did get conked pretty bad in the noggin by Kaido's Kanambo, his club, and he was bleeding profusely, and he lost a tooth again, so I think that's just gonna be a thing now in, like, every story arc from here on out. Luffy's gonna get some injury where he's gonna lose a tooth. It happened twice in Whole Cake Island, and we're already up to one tooth lost here in Wano, so we'll see if we can work our way up from there. You know, after what Kaido has in store for Luffy, death might actually be on the lower end of that punishment spectrum. But, yeah, before I even get into the chapter, though, I need to address something that actually happens at the very end of it. And it's actually the last panel, and it is going to be this. I'm just going to show it right now. It's not really much of a spoiler. So this chapter will mark the end of Act 1 of Wano Kuni arc, okay? And what this actually means is, well, a few things. Number one, this means that the act structure of Wano, as you could tell, is going to be a little different from all the other act structures of One Piece, because normally we don't get these little intermissions. It's not like, you know, halfway through Thriller Bark, we got Act 1 of Thriller Bark concluded. You know, we don't get that kind of stuff. So, the meaning of this actually comes from the title of the chapter, and there's a few double meanings because you know how Oda likes his puns. But the title of this chapter, chapter 924, is simply, Ha! Now, upon first looking at that, I was like, okay, Oda, what context is the ha here? Are we doing, like, a funny ha-ha? Like, ha-ha-ha! Luffy just got knocked into a coma by Kaido. Knee slapper, that is. Are we doing, like when Jinbei uses his fishman karate, like, ha! Like throwing a punch? Or, are we doing, like, Goku's Kamehameha? Like, how are we doing this? So, what the ha actually refers to is, a segment in the 3-act structure kind of play thing that exists in like a Kabuki play in Japan, alright? So what this breaks down to is the Jo, the Ha, and the Q. And after doing some quick and dirty research on Wikipedia and just doing some Google searches, this is basically what it breaks down to, and I'm pretty sure this is what Oda's going for here. Okay, so, we're breaking this down like a 5-act Kabuki play. The first act eases you into the setting. Kind of a slow start, usually with some type of musical accompaniment. And we've actually seen that back in chapter 909 when we first got to see the Flower Capital and we got to see what Frankie and Robin and Usopp and everybody were doing. Remember, it started by a curtain literally parting and rising, as off to the side we have some creepy people wearing those Japanese no masks, and they were playing a guitar. Well, not an electric guitar, more of like a Japanese instrument, like a lute sort of thing, but they were kind of like, the curtain rises on the Wano Kuni arc. And then that's when we get the first act of Wano. And, you know, I wouldn't exactly refer to as the chapters up until this point, chapter 909 to now, to be anything slow is not a word I would refer to it as. Yeah, maybe the first few of them when we were just getting into Wano and we're meeting O-tama and everybody, maybe those. But after that, it's been pretty non-stop action. Once the giant dragon shows up, you really can't say this is going slow anymore, you know? But hey, that's how it starts. And then, from what I've read, the second act is more about, like, battle, and not necessarily, like, physical battle, but considering this is a battle shonen, it's probably going to have both aspects of that, like a metaphorical battle and also a literal battle, you know, where people rise up for the fight. And then the third act, that's where shit really hits the fan, because the third act, that's when the climax occurs. That's when the big, holy crap, what the hell, kind of moment's gonna happen. So whenever we get to the third act, like, tighten up your apple sacks, boys and girls, okay? Because that's when it's really gonna get intense, okay? And then the fourth act is referred to as the journey, and it's honestly more of a musical in most adaptations from what I'm reading here. So it kind of just, like, eases you you down from that dramatic climax from the third act. So it's not going to be quite as long. And also, by the way, even though the first act of Wano was like from chapter 909 to 924, so that's like 15 chapters, even though that was 15 chapters, that doesn't mean like every single act is also going to be 15 chapters. I think it's really going to be a varying length to each one, with the second and third acts being the longest, and then after that, the fourth act not being quite as long as the third. And then I don't expect the fifth act to be long at all, because the literal translation of the end of that, the Jo-Ha-Q, the Q is a really quick, speedy resolution. Just, okay, come on, let's wrap everything up. Come on, guys, wrap everything up. We're all good now. That's probably what it's going to be. So from the way that this is going, we're going to have in the second act the time when Kid and Luffy and Law get back up and fight against Kaido, and then the third act is going to be the epic final battle where Luffy beats the crap out of him. I'm sure Luffy by himself will definitely be able to do that. No, it's probably going to be a huge epic brawl between like everybody. And then the fourth act is going to break out into a spontaneous musical number. And then the fifth act is only going to be maybe like 1 or 2 chapters where it's just like, okay, Kaido's beat, Wano's saved, everybody get on the sunny, we're going to Hellbath! That's the basic act structure we're going with here. Of course, Oda's going to take some liberties with that, I'm sure, but yeah, that's pretty much what we're looking forward to. So if you're going to take one thing away from this seminar, have it be this. Watch out for the third act. The third act, that's when shit's gonna go down. All right. So now, the cover page itself this week, just really quick, nothing really all that remarkable. It's just Sentomaru helping out a elderly bear couple by chopping some wood for them. So, good job, Sentomaru. Good guy. All right, so now moving on to the actual chapter, we cut right back to where we left off, where the entire Bakura district is just devastated. Okay, I didn't really focus on that too much last chapter when Luffy was busting out all of his largest scale attacks like Elephant Gun, Elephant Gatling, Gear Fourth, Kong Organ. You know, when he was busting all that stuff out, we were too busy staring at just how, you know, badly pounded Kaido was getting hit and how it really did nothing to him and how he didn't even have armament hockey active when he was tanking all those hits. But in reality, it caused, yeah, quite a bit of devastation in the Bakura district. There is just destruction and detritus wherever you look. And a lot of people got caught up in those explosions, like when Kaido was breaking out the Boro breath. There's probably a lot of corpses lying around the city streets is what I'm saying here. So, Luffy's lying unconscious on the ground, or at least we assume he's unconscious. Kaido is kind of thinking otherwise. All of Kaido's minions are kind of crawling out of the cracks of the town like, is the fight over? Are we okay? You know, is it over? So they all go rush to Luffy's body and they're staring at him and they're like, whoa, dude, this kid is like, is he still alive? And they mention, he's like, well, he got hit right in the face with Kaido's club, or as a kanombo, the thing that like demons usually carry. So they're like, of course it only took 1 hit to take him down. This is Kaido-sama we're talking about. So Kaido's actually kind of pissed because number one, well, Luffy, you know, defied him and everything like that. But also number two, he is 100% sober right now. So he's like, oh, damn it! I drank all morning to get that drunk and you ruined it, son of a... Alright, take him and throw him in a prison cell. And so they kind of like go up to Luffy and Kaido's kind of staring at him and he says, you know, I don't know if it's just because of his false bravado or, you know, whatever, if he's just an idiot or his resolution, but even after I knock his ass out, I could still see he's scowling at me. And we don't get to see like a close-up of Luffy's face, but we get to see like one side of it, and yeah, it does appear that like even in his unconscious comatose-like state, Luffy is just like... You know, I can imagine, like, whenever the second that Kaido hit him, you know, his face just froze like that, like, I'm gonna get you back, Kaido, you bastard. And he's just lying there on the ground, like, twitching and stuff, and so Kaido's like, yeah, just pick him up and throw him in a jail cell, release a special edition of the paper letting everybody know what happened, because they have to have some kind of cover story. They have to explain what the hell happened to the Bakura district just getting leveled. But Kaido does specify, is like, make sure you will not mention he is a pirate, because this is an isolated country. We can't let the people know that there's outsiders coming in and causing problems, because that's going to be a huge issue. So We don't actually get to see the paper and what it says in this chapter, but I can assume it's probably like, you know, there was this bandit, or, you know, there's this roving outlaw that just came into town and wrecked the entire place, and that was Luffy. And then Master Kaido came out of nowhere, and with one swing of his mighty club, he took out the Centaur, and now the island is safe again. Probably going to be something along the lines of that kind of rhetoric. Now remember, while all this is going on, Law is also in the town, just kind of off to the side, just observing what's going on. You know, after the whole dragon thing, you know, Law got to the Bakura district as well, sees Luffy on the ground, and I like to think that maybe Law, because from what he's seen from Luffy so far, I mean, he saw Luffy take down Doflamingo, which he thought was impossible. You know, all this crazy stuff he saw Luffy do. So even though Law was like, I'm sure 95% that, you know, this fight was going to end exactly how it ended, there might have been a little voice on the side of like Law's shoulder, like a little angel on his poofy hat that was like, maybe Straw Hat, you will win the day. He's like, maybe. Bam! Aw, crap. So Law's like, alright, well, at this point, there's nothing left but to do but run, so let's just get the hell out, cheese it. So he gets ready to open up a room to just teleport Luffy back to him and then just, you know, carry him off back to the top of the mountain because he's worried about Beppo and his crew, and we still don't know the fate of what happened to the Straw Hats up at the mountain. So he's getting ready to do that when all of a sudden he gets stabbed in the arm by a nail. And the nail was flung by Hawkins, who arrives on the scene on his, like, Kieran thing, and he breaks out his straw sword, and Law's, like, about to deflect his blow or dodge it or whatever using his Addtioinal no Mi, but he realizes he can't do it. He can't use his powers, and he starts, like, sweating profusely, and he's like, what the hell was that? And so Hawkins busts out his straw sword and goes and tries to stab him, and he mentions at the same time, he's like, the sea prism stone, that Karyoseki that exists all over the world, it originated here in the country of Wano, and not only that, but it's here in Wano Kuni where the only craftsmen that are capable of refining that ore down to such a small size, or like the Karyoseki blacksmiths, or whatever you want to call them, okay? So this is actually really cool. This answers a lot of questions. The biggest one for me is, how come there are not seastone bullets in the One Piece world? Because you'd think if you have this mineral that is able to nullify devil fruit powers, and you use it in handcuffs and jail cells and everything, and you line the bottoms of your ships with it, why not make bullets out of that stuff? And you might say, is like, oh, well, it's a really rare material. I'm like, yeah, it's a rare material for most of the world, but when it comes to the world government, like I said, they're lining their ships with it. I'm sure they have enough in reserve, or I'm sure they probably monopolize the mining of it. You know, like every time someone is on an island and they discover a natural deposit of Karyoseki, the world government is there within like 2 hours and is like, oh, that's great. We control this island now. We own this reserve, but this is my private land. I'm like, yeah, it is, but yeah, it's ours now, so, you know, I can imagine it's something like that. So, the reason why we don't see those kind of things, not just, you know, sea stone bullets, but also, like, sea stone arrowheads or anything like that is, I guess, when refining it down or when making something really small, you have to have a really skilled hand at that. Maybe it's, like, gets down to a certain point and it gets too brittle and you can't sculpt it, or it's really difficult to sculpt into any particular shape. And, yeah, so the craftsmen of Wano are the only people that can do that, right? And, this whole thing with the sea prism stone actually reminds me of, does anyone out there watch Game of Thrones? Because you know immediately the reference I'm going to make. So, if you're not familiar with it, in Game of Thrones, there's a special metal called Valyrian steel. And nothing cuts like Valyrian steel. Like, that is the ultimate metal that you want your sword or your spear to be made out of in the Game of Thrones universe, right? And it was originally mined and forged in a place called Valyria, which was destroyed by a volcanic eruption like hundreds of years ago. So the knowledge to, like, you know, to refine this ore and make Valyrian steel has been lost to the ages. So all that's left is just the swords and spears and things that already exist as Valyrian steel, right? And there's only a very few number of craftsmen in the entire world that are capable enough to take a sword made of Valyrian steel, melt it down, and reforge weapons. So they can still do that, but they can't make more of it, but they can at least, you know, take the metal that already exists and change it into other weapons. So that's the way I'm kind of looking at this sea prism stone thing, where there's like these craftsmen that only exist in this one part of the world, and there's not very many of them, but they're kind of the best at what they do. I also saw a lot of theories because Well, let's think about this for a second. There's a lot of sea prism stone in Wano. Yes, and there's only a few craftsmen and blacksmiths, whatever you want to call them, in Wano that can make this stuff or craft it into such a tiny little, size for nails and bullets. I'm like, yeah. What about Frankie? I know, right? I know. What if Frankie learns how to craft sea prism stone down to make sea prism stone bullets? That would be amazing. That would be such an awesome upgrade for him. Like, he would take a weapons left, and then he just takes out devil fruit users left and right. That, and considering that this is an entire country filled with devil fruit users, artificial users, so we don't know, I guess sea prism stone would affect them as much as a normal devil fruit user would. The whole reason they're called devil fruits is for, they're hated by the seas, so I would assume it does. So that would be cool. Frankie learns how to do that and then just starts wiping out a bunch of the gifters. Oh man, that'd be great. So yeah, he's a craftsman. I mean, he might be learning from a craftsman on how to do it, so we'll see about that. But yeah, that's a little bit of a background we learn about the Karyoseki and where it's found and everything, and I really found that interesting. Okay, so meanwhile, while Luffy's being carted away, or right before he's about to be carted away, they're about to pick him up, and just this burst of Conqueror's Haki just comes off of him. I can imagine this is Luffy's like last reflexive action, like he's barely conscious right now. He's on the ground like, boom! I mean, it was just one last boom, and maybe he was targeting Kaido to try to affect him. Of course, it doesn't work on Kaido. Kaido mentions that also Kid has Conqueror's Haki as well, so that's something new we didn't know about. And he states, he turns around with his club, and he's just like, the world doesn't need any more conquerors, Kid. And then he starts walking away. So yeah, a bunch of his men got conked out by it, but beyond that, they don't really... Kaido doesn't even really care. Kaido's not even like, I'm gonna deal with him personally. No, Kaido just turns back into a dragon and is like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go get drunk some more. Freaking Kid's ruined it. Now I gotta drink till 7 o'clock to get drunk as what I was before. Damn it. So he gets the hell out of there, and Luffy gets carted off to parts unknown. So, at the same time, Kinemon finally managed to make it into Okabore Town, and he's observing his wife Osuru from a distance. Okabore Town also got wiped out by Kaido and Jack and the bandits, so there's a bunch of people that are injured, and Osuru's trying to help them out, and they're all very nice. They're all very considerate for what Luffy did, so they don't blame Luffy at all. Rather the opposite, actually. They're sitting there worried about Luffy's, well-being. They're like, oh, I hope Luffy's son doesn't think that he caused this. He was so nice giving us all that food. I'm like, well, okay, Luffy did kind of cause this. Like, let's not, yeah, the problems were already in place, but would Okabore Town be in the absolute state of destruction for right now if it wasn't for Luffy? No, probably not. But the situation is they care about him, and that's what matters. They're good people, right? So, Kinemon doesn't actually approach his wife. He states that he can't yet. He has to wait until the operation is finished. So he's just kind of observing her from afar with, like, a cloth, like a kunoichi, well, not a kunoichi because he's a guy, but, like a ninja. He has the cloth thing over him so they can't tell who he is, like it's his disguise, which can someone explain to me the history of this? Because I guess it's supposed to be like they're in disguise, but I'm just gonna go out there and claim that this is not a really good disguise, okay? But anyway, he's observing Osuru, and he's like, oh my god, she hasn't aged a day in 20 years. She's so beautiful. Oh my darling Osuru, after the whole fight with Kaido and the raid is over, I'll make sure to come back for you. So that's all there is there. So, we now cut back over to the mountaintop where we finally find out what happened to the Straw Hats and the Heart Pirates and everything, because that was like 2 or 3 chapters we didn't know about what was going on up there. So, Okiku managed to make it back to the mountain. I assume what happened was Okiku left with Kinemon to go down the mountain to chase after Luffy and Law and to see Osuru, but then after they saw the dragon, like, Kinemon was like, okay, Okiku, you need to go back up there to see what happened. I'm gonna go down and make sure Osuru's okay. So then they separated. Okiku managed to make it back up to the top of the mountain, and she's looking for everybody. And as it was surprising for the entire fandom, actually all the Straw Hats are dead. Yeah, all of them, all of them. Brook's gone, Nami, Sanji, all wiped out. Really, really impactful emotional scene here. Oda really doesn't focus on it all too much, but yeah, they're all gone. Okay, of course they're not. Of course they're not. They managed to survive, and they managed to survive because of Shinobu's devil fruit, which is the mature fruit, or the Juku no Mi. Okay, so what this basically does, it's kind of the exact opposite of, remember that that girl from the movie Film Z, I think her name was Ain, she had the power of the return fruit, which anybody that she touched, they regressed in time by 12 years. An inanimate object as well as any person, you know, went back in time. So she turned Nami into like an 8-year-old and Robin into like an 18-year-old, you know that. This might be like the opposite of that, where anything she touches, she can maybe send forward in time by either an interval, or the way she states it, it's like anything that she affects with her bewitchment, because once again, they're not referred to as devil fruit abilities, they're just bewitchment. Or magic or whatever. Whatever she touches will just keep maturing until, I guess, she wills it to stop. So in this case, when they saw Kaido coming and the Boro breath head in their way, Shinobu touched the ground, and the ground around everybody began to mature and age and sink. At once, okay? So when that occurred, the Boro breath struck the castle, and they were able to get out of harm's way. So none of them are injured. In a funny scene, though, Sanji climbs. I was like, oh, we need to save everybody! Sanji just grabs Nami and Carrot and just, like, skywalks out of the hole. I believe he also saved Shinobu as well. So Sanji's just like, well, there we go. I saved all the women. You know, you guys can have fun climbing out on your own now. Like, you know, Beppo and Brook and everybody. And like, you know, you guys have fun. So they're like, oh, save us too! Come on, we're still sinking here. So that actually is something else there, that they mentioned that they're still sinking in the ground. So maybe that whenever Shinobu activates her ability, maybe she can't turn it off. Maybe it'll just keep maturing and maturing and maturing until it eventually turns into nothing or whatever. I'm not sure there. Also, I don't know if this works on living beings, because... Hey, Shinobu, I have an idea. Usopp, you get a giant slingshot, and then we'll just fire Shinobu straight at Kaido's face when he's a dragon, and just touch him, and then he'll slowly age into nothingness, and then just poof! And then, how about we do that? How about we do that, Shinobu? That seems like a good stratagem. I'm sure this ability will come in handy whenever you come in contact with like a door or something to sneak into a building. This ability would just, you know, defeat the whole purpose of a lock and key, because you just go into it and just touch the door, kind of like Crocodile when he was escaping Impel Down. Like, he just has to touch a door and the whole thing turns into sand and just is destroyed. Shinobu's probably the same way. Like, she goes up to a door, touches the lock, and the lock would just instantly corrode away and just, and then you could just open it. And so there you go. I can see a lot of applications for this with being a ninja and all that stuff. So Okiku mentions to them, she's like, okay, after everybody is saved from the hole, she's like, okay, I need to explain about our current situation, because keep in mind, Nami and Brook and Sanji and everyone, they don't know what the hell just happened down in town. They don't know about the fight and how it went, Luffy getting knocked out, Luffy getting carted away, Law getting stabbed with a nail. They know nothing about that. So Okiku's like, allow me to explain what just happened and what our next, you know, plan of action should be. Also, did I not mention the whole thing with Law? Or did I skip over that scene? Okay, I did. Law managed to escape. Okay, so I don't know how he managed to do this other than just pulling the nail out, because he probably just did that. I mean, let's think about this. Okay, he's about to activate his room, and then Hawkins shows up, flings a nail at him, pierces him, and of course Law loses his ability to use his power, and he probably starts sweating and feeling numb because he can't move too well. But at the end of the day, it's just one nail. I mean, it's a nail, and it even has, like, the end of it, so you could literally just, like, take 2 fingers and just... Ow! Damn it! Okay, well, I'm good now. Now, maybe because he's weakened because of the effects, he won't be able to move too well, so maybe he doesn't have the strength to do it. Like, I'm not really sure what it feels like when a Devil Fruit user gets pierced with Sea Prism Stone, but I can assume it's pretty painful. Like, maybe your whole body, like, it's the same effects as when you're in the water, so your whole body goes numb and you can't move very well, but Law was still able to stand and escape. So yeah, and he seems to be also, like, panting considerably, so we don't really know if he took the nail out or not, but he managed to get away somehow, so I'm assuming he managed to juke Hawkins, avoid the first attack, and then maybe, you know, just use every ounce of his energy, or maybe use a sword or something, just use something to pop out that nail, and then he could use room to get away. But he seems to be pretty exhausted from this whole exchange. So, if anything, these Sea Prism Stone bullets, or I'm assuming they have bullets somewhere, you know, like if you're gonna make it down to the size of a nail, then bullets are just like the next step up. So yeah, those are probably gonna exist, and they're gonna cause a lot of problems for later on. But okay, so after Okiku mentions to everybody, I got to explain this to you. We then cut over to the wasteland area where we see O-tama, and now I get to correct a mistake that I made last chapter, because I mean, I didn't come out and directly say, like, O-tama's dead, but I missed one crucial factor, and that was that Speed still called O-tama her master, which means the effect of her dongo fruit were still in play, which means that, of course, O-tama is not dead, because if she were to be dead, then the effects of the dongo would disappear, and Speed would no longer care about her well-being. So, yeah, O-tama is still alive, and she's actually found by Inuarashi, who picks her up and was like, you know, oh my god, I can't believe they would do such a thing to an innocent little girl, those heathens. We need to take her into the forest and heal her. So Inuarashi kind of cradles her and walks away. Also, we get to see the exact size of Inuarashi here, too. Inuarashi is a pretty big dog, okay? He's a big dog. So, you know, we see O-tama, and she's just, like, super tiny, you know, just being cradled. Like, she can literally fit in the palm of Inuarashi's hand. So, yeah, him and the other members of the Guardians are... No, it would be the Musketeers, because the Guardians are Nekomamushi's group. Inuarashi and the other members of the Musketeers, they pick up O-tama, and they go into the forest to patch her up. So I'm sure she'll be fine. Okay. So, now we cut over to the Flower Capital proper, where we see, like, the Shogun's Palace and everything in Wano, and this is where we see Frankie, Robin, and Usopp, who are all receiving the special edition paper that Kaido was mentioning. And once again, we don't get to see or read exactly what it says about, like, the whole story they cooked up, but it does mention Luffy and that he, you know, caused some trouble and everything. So, this is actually a play on the title of the chapter, where the title is Huh? Or Huh? And when all of the members of the Straw Hat crew, when Frankie and Robin and Usopp all read the paper and they find out what happened to Luffy, they all have the exact same reaction, which is, huh? And they each do it in really contorted, like, disgusted facial expressions that Oda draws. So here's Frankie's like, super, Luffy, what? And then here's Usopp's, is like, oh, look, a paper on Luffy, huh? And then, of course, here's Robin, Oh. Oh my god. Oda. What did you do? What the hell did you do to Robin? That is the sexiest she's ever been, man! Holy crap, that's... Wow, Oda, you do great job, man! Great job, props. You know, I need to... I'm sorry, guys. I know this is incredibly unprofessional, but... I need to go get some tissues. I need to, hold on, just partly to cry, but there's something else. I need to get this done. Don't give it up, Luffy. Don't give it up, Zoro. Whew, okay, well, that was, a very enlightening Robin appreciation session there. Okay, so anyway, I think what Oda's trying to get across here is, yeah, the other Straw Hats are very surprised at the confrontation between Luffy and Kaido and how he got his rubber cranium caved in. So yeah, that's what all these expressions are for. What about Zoro, though? Because about time we check in with him, right? So last time we met up with Zoro, this is kind of like a children's cartoon show. It's just like, hey, where did Zoro go, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, he's on a boat! Yeah, where did Zoro go? I had him right here. Did he fall down again? Sorry, Brooke, but yeah, where the hell did, Okay, whatever. Anyway, so Zoro is on a ship, and he's clearly heading into the Flower Capital. We could see them on the river, and the flowers, and the cherry blossoms, and everything. He caught the ship on, like, in the middle of the wasteland. That's where the wharf was. So he's not heading back into the wasteland. He's heading into the Flower Capital. So maybe Zoro will meet back up with, like, Frankie or Usopp at some point. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen. And while he's on the ship, there's either the captain of the ship who's sailing it, or somebody else who's on the ferry. He's reading the piece of paper, and he's like, oh, a samurai named Luffy Taro and Kaido had a fight. And Zoro is just like, what? oh, this stings. And so he's just scarfing down wasabi sushi next to this dude. So he's not even surprised really about Luffy and Kaido. He's just like, oh man, this wasabi really stings. Oh, and he starts spitting it over, and he's like, oh man, what are you doing? Don't spit wasabi everywhere. By the way, can you even pay for that? You know, and he's like, you're eating way too much of this crap. So, yeah, I've personally, the only time I've ever tried wasabi, I was like a teenager. I was like 14, 15 years old, and it was like not, like, I did not go to like an authentic Japanese restaurant. It was basically like wasabi sushi that was like at a gas station. I didn't get sick or anything from it. I just took one bite and I was like, I don't like this very much. But hey, I haven't tried it since, so maybe I would enjoy it if it was prepared properly, you know, in an actual, like, restaurant or something. But yeah, so, yeah, Zoro is sailing back into the Flower Capital. We'll probably meet up with him in maybe a few chapters. Okay, so now we cut over to the next day in Wano country, in an area known as Udon. So, wait. So one region of Wano is curry, and the other region of Wano is Udon, as in udon noodles. I think I see what Oda's going with here with the naming scheme in Wano. Also, Lord Odin. Yeah, okay, so it's naming it after famous Japanese dishes and stuff. Okay, so, yeah, but I am going to assume this is another region of Wano altogether, which is good because so far we've only known about curry. Okay, the region of curry. So this is the region of Udon where it doesn't look that happy. We honestly only see a few factories on top of mountains, a very mountainous valley-like region. We do see a bridge off to the side, which might connect it back to the other parts of the country. But yeah, there's just these really tall buildings and the smokestacks coming off them. And these factories are clearly like, you know, mines and refineries where they're like taking all the ore out of the ground and they're making weapons and stuff. And you have Kaido's men that are like bossing the people of Wano around, like, work faster, work harder, work better. And they're taking giant hammers and like, you know, pounding the iron to make weapons and armor probably. And it's just a look into how depressing the area really is. There's also a prison in this area, and this is where Luffy is going to be held. But before we get to that, we also have a bunch of Kaido's guards that are approaching a mysterious darkened cell. Okay, and they're going up to it, and they're like, who the hell's in this cell? We can't see inside, it's too dark. And they're like, well, we're just told to put one poisonous fish with the bones removed in that cell every day. And so I guess this one guy is unfamiliar with this, or he's new or whatever, so he takes the fish and he's like, well, what is it? What's in there? Why do we have to treat the fish so nicely? Why do we have to remove the bones? You know, who cares? It's a poisonous fish. They're going to die anyway. And so he just kind of like tosses the fish into the cell. Now, meanwhile, while this is going on, Luffy is being brought into the prison. He's basically being carted by, so there's like a guy on horseback who's chained Luffy from behind, so Luffy's like, you know, shackled up, and he has to like, you know, be led behind the horse, and his face is all bandaged up. I think this is maybe in part for like, you know, actually like, you know, we're gonna patch up your head wounds so you don't die right away. We don't want that happening. We want you to be tortured first, but also just maybe to hide his identity or whatever. So he has a cloth wrapped around his head, and he's just being led through. And you can see the look on Luffy's face. Like, you just see his eyes, but the look he's shooting everybody is just like, I'm gonna beat everybody's asses in here before I leave. You know, before I leave this country, all of y'all, every single one of you is gonna be kissing the ground. Alright? Like, I swear to God. So anyway, he's being wandered through here, and he gets carted by the first cell that we saw, the dark cell, where we see someone inside, you know, after the fish was thrown in, the bones just come flying out and just stab the one dude that fed him right in the neck, and he lands on the ground. He's bleeding. He's like, ow, what the hell? So what happened here was they take a fish, chuck it into a jail cell. We don't know who's inside. It's too dark. The person grabs the fish, rips out the bones, eats the poison fish, takes the bones from said fish, and just whips it like a freaking throwing knife or like a shuriken right out of the cell, goes right through the bars and stabs the guard right in the freaking neck. And just he goes down and he's bleeding, and he's like, oh, what the hell? It's like, I didn't even know there was somebody in there that was still alive. And then we cut to like the only scene we have, just like the whites of the person's eyes emerge from the darkness. And he's like, well, am I alive? Nobody knows for sure. Burp. and he just kind of burps because he just ate the fish. And we don't know who that dude is. I would like to assume it's another member that they're going to have to try to recruit for the rebellion. Oh, and by the way, earlier on, Kinemon did see Shutenmaru leaving the town, and he remarked that it was in fact Ashura Doji. So we can assume there that he just changed his name. I think that's the best way to look at it. You know, Ashura Doji was defeated by Odin a long time ago. He was his ally, and then after maybe Kaido came to power, he just changed his name to Shutenmaru. There'll probably be some backstory for that at some point. But yeah, so that's who Ashura Doji is, and I'm assuming another member, the three that they're looking for, I forget the other two names off the top of my head, but they are somewhere in Wano, and it's very likely that they might be in like maybe different regions. So Ashura Doji or Shutenmaru is in the Curry region, and this other dude is in the Udon region in a jail cell. So there's probably going to be a jailbreak. We're probably going to have Impel Down 2.0 here, which is good because Luffy has experience. But anyway, yeah. So Luffy gets carted past that cell, and we don't know if it's like the very next cell down. I would like to assume it would be, or maybe it's a few cells down. Luffy just gets chucked in, you know, doors slam behind him, is like, all right, well, tomorrow we're going to be working the hell out of you and torturing you and all that good stuff, so get a nice sleep. And so they all leave him. And this is where we have the last scene of the chapter here, where the curtain begins to close, and we get to see Luffy in the same cell with another supernova, Eustace, Captain Kidd. So we already knew Kidd was thrown in a jail cell somewhere in Wano, but a lot of people were assuming, it's like, oh, Luffy's gonna get captured by Kaido, thrown in the same prison as Kidd, and in fact, he's right there. And in fact, I thought they were in separate cells at first, because you see the bar dividing them, but when it pans out, we do get to see that, yeah, they are in fact in the same cell. Maybe there's like a grate in between them, but it's like a grate that has holes in it, so they can at least speak to each other and see each other. Maybe it might be something like that, or maybe they're just in the same cell. I don't know, but they're roomies. So the curtain begins to close as Kidd and Luffy at the exact same time say, "You'll pay for this, Kaido," or "You'll never forget this, Kaido," something like that. And Kidd is all battered and broken too. He's missing some teeth, and his goggles are broken, and he's bloodied, and one of his eyes is swollen shut, and Luffy's not looking too good either. And then the last thing before the curtain completely closes is Luffy and Kidd realize that the other is in the cell, and they're like, "Oh, wait a second, I know you, you're..." And then the curtain closes on the first act of Wano Kuni. So yeah, and the ha, of course, refers to the second part, which in the 5-act play, I guess the jo is the first act, and then the ha is the second, third, fourth, and then the Q, the ending of the whole thing, the really speedy resolution, that's the 5th. Okay, so there we go. Now, a few things about this, actually. First off, I already mentioned that the Impel Down, like, remake, so that's going to be this. That's what, like, the second act is going to start off on. I don't know if it's going to be Luffy and Kidd and the other dude in the cell, like, rallying together to escape the prison, or it's going to be Okiku and Kinemon and Brook and Sanji and everybody breaking into the prison to get them back, or maybe it could be Frankie or Usopp. Maybe we can get them in on it now, because they still haven't reunited with the other Straw Hats. We cannot get all the Straw Hats together. How long has it been since all of them have been united in one place? You know, because, not with Zoe, because Sanji was gone, and before that with Dressrosa, they all separated. I think it was sometime when they arrived at Dressrosa, like 220-something chapters ago, when they were united as a crew. So, yeah, they just can't get all united, right? And Zoro left before they had a chance to meet up on the top of Castle Odin, so, yeah, that's just hilarious there. But, yeah, so take it whatever you will. I would prefer a jailbreak from the inside. I would prefer that other shadowy dude coming up with a plan, because Luffy and Kid are both there together, and then they break out and use their devil fruits to, you know, just wreak havoc all throughout the prison. Maybe we can finally find out the name of Kid's fruit and all the different magnetism things he can do, that kind of stuff, okay? But I'm definitely hoping on that. Now, there's another way to look at this ending of Act 1 thing, because is there going to be, like, are we just going to continue on with Act 2 in the next chapter, because there's a break next week, but after that, are we going to continue on where we left off with Act 1, or is there going to be, like, a buffer? Is there going to be, like, an intermission with something else? I wonder what that could be. Reverie, maybe? Da 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 da! So yeah, I'm actually hoping for that. I know we want to get back to Wano and everything, but I think it would really work if, and I think I even threw out this idea when we were talking about Reverie, when Reverie ended so quickly. I was under the impression, I was like, well, Wano is probably going to be a very long arc, so maybe we'll have an intermission somewhere in Wano and we'll cut back over to see what's going on with Reverie. Because Reverie ended at, like, such an intense point, and it's just like, are we going to have to wait till all the way to the end of Wano? Because Wano, like, look at it this way, even if you want to say that each individual act is going to be the same length, which I really don't think it is, especially the 5th act, because that's the speedy resolution, because I think that's going to be really short. I think it's going to go like 15 chapters for Act 1, maybe like 20-something for Act 2, 30-something for Act 3, because that's where all the action's going to be, and then maybe back down to like 15 to 20 for Act 4, and then maybe less than maybe only 2 or 3, or even less than that for 5. Something like that. That's the way I'm looking at it. But even if you look at it from that perspective, that's still like 70, 80 plus chapters. Are we going to have to wait till the end of all that to cut back to what's going on with Reverie? I mean, we could, but I think it would be easier to do it this way, to just like, okay, we'll have, like, even if it's just one chapter of an intermediate, you know, like, okay, end of Act 1 of Wano, intermission, a single chapter of Reverie, then we cut back to Act 2, and then after Act 2, we get another chapter of Reverie, and then going on to Act 3, and so on and so forth. I would be perfectly content with that, okay? But yeah, if not, then we can cut right back over to see what's going on, and perhaps in Act 2, because this is the act that focuses around fighting and all that stuff, we'll get the breakout, but also I would like to be introduced to the Shogun. So maybe we can get introduced to the Shogun right at the beginning of Act 2, because we still don't know anything about that dude, really, aside from his name and just, like, general stuff. So, yeah. But this act was mostly focused on, you know, Luffy reuniting with his crew, for the most part, getting to Wano, finding out the master plan, what we're going to try to do to take down Kaido, finding out what Kaido's power is, and just how ungodly strong he is, and the gap in that power between Luffy and Kaido. That's what this act was all about, to kind of set it up for like, oh, we got a long way ahead of us. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think below on the whole Sea Prism Stone thing, how Luffy and Kid are going to get out of the prison, what's up with the Shogun, if we're going to find out about him in Act 2, and if we're going to get an intermission in Reverie between now and then. So, yeah, let me know about all that stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101, Act 1, signing out.